Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. My name is Corey Olson, the Tolkien Professor, and I am delighted to join you for session number 168 of Exploring the Lord of the Rings. Tonight, we get introduced to a very important character for the first time, and that is the Mark. It is Rohan. The whole concept of the Rohirrim enters the story for the first time here this evening, which is delightful. Um, so yes, very exciting. So for announcements tonight before we begin, just a couple brief announcements. One of the things I wanted to remind people of is that it is December 15th. That is to say, we are coming to the end of the calendar year. So for those of you who are going to begin thinking about year-end tax breaks and things like that, I would ask you to remember Signum University. Signum University is a 501(c) corporation, and we would be very warmly delighted if you were to take your tax breaks from us. So remember Signum if you are doing year-end giving or again with your privately or with your company. So just wanted to remind folks about that as we come towards the end of the year. It's a great opportunity for giving to kind of get things within the tax windows there. Anyway, just wanted to, yeah, Angrist says $300 is deductible for everyone, regardless of itemizing. See, there you go. Would definitely want to recommend that. The other thing I wanted to remind folks about is our Signum Path program. So our Signum Path program is starting up classes again in January. We've been off here in December, so it's been a while since we've been running our classes, but our Signum Path classes are coming back in January, and we're reintroducing one of our badges that we ran in the summertime and we didn't run it in the fall. So we're going to be running courses for 3 badges, for our writing badge, our oral communications badge, and our person-to-person badge. So that's the one with emotional intelligence and conflict resolution and stuff. It's a really fun badge. So these are really important skills. For those of you who don't know, Signum Path is a new program we just launched, and the goal of it is to help professionals begin to gain and to enhance foundational skills, that is communication skills, people skills, the kinds of things that are enormously important to succeed in any job that you have, even if you're in a very technical or sort of laboratory-based job or whatever. It's still really important to be able to communicate clearly in writing, to be able to be persuasive when you need to be persuasive, to be able to explain things clearly, to be able to connect with people, and to be able to read people, right, when you're interacting with folks, to be a good listener. All of these skills absolutely crucial for success in any field of inquiry. These were the kinds of things that have been really effectively trained by the humanities for many years, but of course people doing less humanities these days, and it has led to a skills gap in the workplace, which we're hoping to help fill. So that's the purpose of Signum Path. Strongly encourage folks to check that out. Really great for folks who are looking to move up in the job that they have, people who are on the job market right now. I know there's a lot of people on the job market, and it's a really good way to help to set yourself apart from other people. These kinds of skills are really things which will make one candidate stand out from among others who have sort of similar resumes. Anyway, it's one of our new big programs this year. Really excited about Signum Path, and as I said, that our classes are starting up. Our classes are each 1 month long. They're just little mini courses, not very expensive. As all of Signum classes, the tuition is quite low, so I encourage you to look into those. There's still time to sign up for our January courses and February courses as we move forward. So just wanted to reintroduce Signum Path to folks and invite you to look into that. And don't forget end of the year giving, which is a wonderful thing. So, okay, with that, let us jump back into the text here, and back into the most passionate discussion we had last week, which is about the phrase "to try to" or "to try and." Many thanks to Wolfhound on Twitter for bringing this up, just sort of made this random observations. Isn't it interesting that Gandalf says it would be useless to try and win the honest Radagast over to treachery? And we ended up talking about when you say to try to and when you say to try and. And I'm especially interested, by the way, in the infinitive version. I feel like the difference between the two is a little sharper in the infinitive version of to try. So when you use to try, so to try and or to try to. So anyway, so we're doing some research here. So there was a really good discussion. I can't summarize all the discussion that was on the discussion board there, but Edith Aldora did some research, and she did some counting here of the number of times these phrases were used by different and who used them in the text. One thing that really struck me as I was looking at these lists that you made, Edith, is the very first thing that I notice is that it's more balanced than I expected. I thought to try and was going to outnumber to try to pretty significantly, and it really doesn't. So that's one thing that I was very interesting to me. There were far more examples of to try to than I expected to find. And another thing, you can see the divisions even among particular characters. Right, like Gandalf has 3 of to try and 4 of to try to, which is really interesting. There is a one other thing that's an interesting split is between the narrator. Right, the narrator only says to try and once, and the narrator uses to try to 4 times. So that does seem to be perhaps a significant imbalance. Frodo always says to try and. Frodo never says to try to. Gollum is divided between the two categories. So it's tricky. I think probably the one that might have surprised me most was seeing Sam Gamgee in the to try to category, because the leading theory, so there were a couple of different theories that folks were putting forward on the discussion board about this. One was that it's merely a question of formality, that to try and is more casual and colloquial, and to try to is sort of more formal and polished. That's the shift there. That's the sort of the one theory. And that seems to me likely. I mean, that feels right in some ways. What was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, sorry, the other theory. The other theory was that maybe it correlates with a difference in certitude, like in confidence of success of the thing, so that it actually has some kind of difference of denotation in that sense. And I'm not really sure. I'm not sure I'm convinced by that one. But I think it's an interesting idea, like if there's actually a kind of a different shade of meaning to this phrase. So I don't know. We'll see. We definitely need to do a little bit more digging. The one instance of the narrator using to try and was very interesting to me, and that was in the... as I recall, that was in the Choices of Master Samwise. And so I'm kind of wondering that it's... I'm kind of wondering whether or not the narrator there is the narrator sort of speaking Sam's thoughts aloud. Like, it's one of the places where the narrator is telling us what Sam is thinking, right? So I'm wondering if the narrator... Well, I would have said the narrator is sort of slipping into more of Sam Gamgee's dialect in saying it. But then again, Sam Gamgee seems to use try to pretty often. Yes, there it is. It was not enough for him to find his master. He still had to try and save him. Yes, exactly. That's the one right there. So again, it's about Sam, and what is kind of going on in his head when he's thinking about going to find Frodo. Here's some examples. Thank you, JJ, for providing a bunch of examples here. Most of these are the to try and examples. We ought to try and rescue him. That is, we ought to try and rescue Lotho Pimple. He still had to try and say, it was not enough for him to find his master. He had to try and save him, the one that we were just talking about. Do not tie their hands. They will give their words not to try and see. That's Faramir on the way to Henethanoon. Faramir I wouldn't have pegged for that either. See, that's the thing. Like, that undermines my confidence in the formal, informal, or formal, colloquial distinction. Faramir doesn't seem to me like a very colloquial kind of fellow in his speech patterns. Gollum. It isn't funny, oh no, not amusing, it's not sense to try and get into Mordor at all. And then if we're going to try and get down, we had better try it once. That is from the Emyn Muil. The oldest were planted by the Ents to try and please the Entwives. Of course, Treebeard there. Again, I would not have pegged Treebeard for loose and colloquial speech either. Angrist is wondering, indicative versus subjunctive mood. Sorry, now I'm going back, Angrist, through the ones I just read. It strikes me, Angrist, now that you mention the subjunctive mood, almost all of these examples are theoretical, like hypotheticals in some sense, right? It's not sense to try and get into Mordor at all. Like, this theoretical thing that you're talking about isn't sense. They will give their words not to try and see in the hypothetical case that, you know, they were left, you know, with, that's why one's less hypothetical. We ought to try and rescue him. The ought, right? They're talking about the thing that should happen, not yet a thing that's actively being planned. The oldest were planted by the Ents to try and please the Entwise. That's not hypothetical either. Exactly. No, it breaks down. It's not universal. I am not going to try and guess is not hypothetical. I guess. Okay, Bjarnasoner says, to me, try to suggests a likelihood that the action taken itself may not be completed successfully, while to try and doesn't necessarily imply that. Okay, so this is back to the confidence thing. So, all right, hang on, let me think about this more. To try to suggests a likelihood that the action taken itself may not be completed success. I'm afraid we shall have to try to get one pony, at least, says Strider. To try to get one pony at least. Okay, and so he's doubtful that they're going to, but they should give it a shot, right? Yeah. Oh, hey, Luke, welcome back. It was useless to try to escape over the long, uncertain path. Okay, right, so he's expressing active disbelief that that's going to happen. If an enemy were so rash as to try to enter that land secretly, okay, right, which wouldn't work. And then we start with the ifs. No, the others were ifs too. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like there must be a pattern. I'm not sure we have it. The more I look at it, the more I look at the different circumstances and characters that are saying it, the less confident I feel that it's merely a question of formality. I wonder if there is something else in the structure of these statements or ideas that, yeah. Okay, the OED says there's little discernible difference in meaning, though there's a difference in formality. Okay. But I'm wondering, see, what about chronology of writing? I don't think so. I don't think Mad Violinist that there's any evidence that he shifted. Okay, now Mad Violinist, I'm looking at this list again and I'm thinking about the passages and when they were written. I'm not going to try and guess is a relatively old one. I could think of nothing to do but to try and put a shutting spell on the door. I think that's a first draft sentence. Whereas Faramir's dialogue is older. Rescuing Lotho Pimple is older. That's quite recent. I mean, that obviously not only in that it's the end of the book, but it's the revised version of the Scouring of the Shire. So, for Thos, it's always possible that Tolkien was not really making a distinction in his ear. It's always possible. I don't ever want to just assume that it's not the case, but at the same time, I feel really uncertain assuming that it is the case, basically. That's my issue there, is that Tolkien, there's so much evidence, or let me say it this way. Very many times that I have found other people assuming that an apparent inconsistency in Tolkien's usage was merely arbitrary inconsistence, I have too many times come to find that there was a pattern there to be easily taken in by that. Yeah. There are times when they are not interchangeable. Aranas, I think I agree with that. And it feels different. But I'm not sure I can quantify the difference. That is, when I go and I replace the and with to in some of the later quotes, like, they will give their word not to try to see, feels different from they will give their word not to try and see. Okay. Literally, if we just kind of back up and look at the two phrases without thinking about what it sounds like, without thinking about, anything like that. Let's just look at the actual grammatical construction of the two phrases, right? To try to get one pony at least, to use the first example, right? To try to get one pony. That is stringing together two infinitives, right? You're using the infinitive to get, right? They're going to get. That's the verb, and they're using it in the infinitive. But then they're using the verb try in the infinitive. So the thing that they're trying to do is an infinitive, right? There, we shall have to try what? To try to get. Whereas when you're using and instead of to, it changes the second verb from an infinitive, a separate, like stacked infinitives, to try to get, and it changes it, at least superficially, into a single compound infinitive, right? To try and see, to try and save, to try and rescue. As if like the two of them are one single action, right? One single compound undertaking. What is the thing we ought to do? Try and save him. We ought to, he had still to try and save him. They will not try and see. Whereas again, the two concepts, to try to get one pony, those are two separate infinitives that are stacked logically onto each other. Similarly, the second example there, it was useless to try to escape over the long, uncertain path. It was useless to escape. And it was useless to try. But it's not just useless to try and escape. It's not just trying and escaping are one compound action. Escaping is the action, and trying is like a modifying action. You know what I mean? Is this distinction making any sense? I like Heitlow's comment here is the more I repeat them back to myself back to back, the more to try and seems to slightly emphasize the trying, and try to X seems to slightly emphasize the X being done, that second verb. This might be on the one hand because of how my sentence stress patterns shake down in isolation like this, but at this point it's more likely because I've been repeating those constructions so much. Yes. Zephin, that's exactly what I keep coming across too, that there's a difference in feel, but I'm not sure I can say what it is. Yeah, I think I'm going along with Heitlow's comment that the stacked infinitives, to try to, places more emphasis on the second verb. To try to get. That the trying is in that sense only just kind of like modifying the getting, right? What will they have to do? They'll have to get one pony. But they have to try to get it, right? But it's about the getting. Just as the second one is about the escaping. The third one is about the entering the land. If an enemy were so rash as to try to enter that land secretly. Oh, interesting. Sorry, I missed your name there. Somebody was saying that a classical linguist was agreeing with Heitlow there. Okay, so, right. If an enemy were so rash as to try to enter that land secretly. Again, it's about the entering, right? Whereas, and the trying seems to me a secondary thing there. I mean, it's an important idea in all of those cases, but it seems to me distinctly secondary to the sense of the sentence, where that second verb is the primary. Whereas when they're joined by and, to try and see, to try and save, to try and please the Entwives, the pleasing is important, but so is the trying. Like, they didn't please the Entwives, but they were trying to please the Entwives, and that's what's important, right? They might not rescue Lotho Pimple, but they ought to try and rescue him, right? They'll give their word not to see, but the more important thing is they're going to give their word not to try to see, not to try and see, right? It's the trying. The trying is equally important to the seeing. It's the trying. It's their act of will that Faramir is saying that's why we don't need to tie their hands, because they're not going to try and see, right? Yeah. That feels like it's getting closer. It feels like it's getting closer to the different sense there. Let me look at some others here. I'm not going to try and guess, said Frodo, smiling, about Bilbo's, which lines were written by Aragorn and which by Bilbo in the poem. I'm not going to try and guess. Yes. So he's not just saying I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to try. Right? I'm neither going to guess nor try and guess. Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I don't think it's about certainty exactly. I think it's about how primary to the meaning of the sentence the concept of trying is, the verb try is. and back to the one that sparked this whole discussion, it would have been useless in any case to try and win over the honest Radagast to treachery. It would have been impossible to win the honest Radagast over to treachery. But it would have been useless even to try and win over the honest Radagast to treachery. Whereas if he said it would have been useless in any case to try to win over the honest Radagast to treachery, it does place more of the emphasis on the winning, which would feel like the wrong word, because that sentence is about winning. It's about how there's no point in even trying and winning. The trying needs to be more of the emphasis, because the attempt is useless, right? Useless even to think about it. Mary in the Old Forest says, that is the path I am going to try and find. See, there I would think he could have said to try to find. But by saying to try and find, maybe the certitude that you guys are feeling is, maybe it's just another way of saying the same thing that I'm saying. If Mary had said, that is the path I am going to try to find. Yes, I can't help. I find that I do stress the second verb more verbally when I do it that way. That's the path I'm going to try to find. Find is the emphasis, right? But if you say that is the path I'm going to try and find are equally weighted, joined by and. And so therefore it's less confident, right? Mary's not laying the emphasis on find. It's, 50-50. Is he going to find it, or is he just going to try? He's going to do both, but he hopes to do both, but he might end up just doing the one. Yeah. That's starting to work for me. Let's see. I was thinking so, said Frodo to Gildor, but we have got to try and get there, but it won't be done by sitting and thinking. Farmer Maggot. He's saying this to Farmer Maggot. I was thinking so, that it's going to be difficult to get to the ferry, but we have to try and get there. Yeah. Try and get, not try to get, but we have to try to get there. Yeah. Kurtzimus says, if we try to figure this out, it sounds less likely that we will than if we say we are going to try and figure this out. See, I disagree. To me, it's the opposite, Kurtzimus. I think it's opposite. If we try to figure this out, the figuring out is the primary emphasis. But if we try and figure it out, it's a good chance we're not gonna, right? Yeah. No, I think I hear the opposite to you, Kurtzimus. I think I do. Let's see. Other examples. Let's see. I could think of nothing to do but to try and put a shutting spell on the door. Try and put a shutting spell on the door. Yeah. Now there he did succeed in putting a shutting. It didn't hold, right? But he did put a shutting spell. Or maybe, I guess it didn't succeed, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know that we're going to solve this definitively one way or the other, but that is at least a theory that seems initially to hold up and would provide an explanation if Tolkien did have a clear differentiation in his own mind. And again, let me just emphasize, nothing would shock me less than, and I understand that the OED says the two are basically interchangeable. In usage, they certainly are. And I have no doubt that the differences in different people using that, not within the book, but I mean in the world, the differences between different English speakers using the one or the other almost certainly has more to do with dialect and upbringing, or, you know, whatever like you happen to have been exposed to, than it does anything else. So I am sure that they are functionally interchangeable, and even have been functionally interchangeable for a long time. But doesn't this sound like exactly the kind of thing that Tolkien would have an opinion about? Like, you know, that he would be like, people say to try to and to try and interchangeably, but that's wrong, right? There's a difference in meaning between the two. Couldn't you? I mean, come on. Like, doesn't that sound like a kind of Tolkien opinion to have? Especially since it's one of those things, when you back up and look at it, as we're doing as I've never done in my life before our last two sessions here. When you back up and look at it, it doesn't even make that much sense that they should mean the same thing. You know, the stacking of two infinitives versus the making of one essentially compound infinitive, those are two different grammatical constructions. And in other languages, there would be a difference in meaning between those two things. So I can totally believe that that he made a distinction between the two, and might even have had strong views on this subject. So exactly, Heitlo, the trick is still to work out Tolkien's own pattern. That's exactly it. That's why I think that our best bet here, which is usually the case, honestly, with any author, whenever you're trying to work out a usage issue or trying to figure out like what a word means, or what are the implications of a word, it's always really tempting to go to like associations we have with that word with other things, you know, like basically associations that we bring to the word. But sometimes, often, really, that can be misleading. You always first want to try to build an internal vocabulary. Like, what does this word mean here in this book, right? What does this usage tend to suggest internally within the structure of this book? Yeah, I think it does totally sound like a Tolkien opinion, Matt. Yeah. I don't think Turambar. I mean, you're right that I can easily imagine him. I can easily imagine him going on a rant in a letter to the editor, right, to the publisher, to the Houghton Mifflin proofreaders who are trying to change it, right? So I just said to try to build, right? You have to try to build. Yeah. Emphasis on build, not try, right? I'm not going to say we have to try and build, you know, that compound action of attempting and doing, you know, which, so basically, like, when you use the and, you're essentially establishing precisely what Yoda says is impossible, right? Right. It's either do or do not. There is no try. But if you say to try and rescue, you are saying, no, there's like I'm joining together the concepts of trying and of doing. And, you know, what we're setting out to do is like, it's going to be what it's as yet indeterminate, whether we're only going to try or whether we're going to do. Yeah. Now I don't remember Emily any rant about this in his letters. It's possible, but I don't remember any in the published letters. Yeah, we'll have to see. Okay. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out on this. Of course, we have a whole bunch of examples that we've searched for already here, but like I said, I don't know if my grammatical theory there really holds true. Yeah. But at least it strikes me not only as a viable interpretation of the examples that were given, but it also seems to me like the kind of distinction I would expect Tolkien's distinction to be linguistic in origin. I would expect it to be like grammatical and syntactic, like where these expressions come from. The kind of sloppy using two different constructions to basically mean the same thing. I would expect that that's exactly the kind of thing that would pretty much drive Tolkien crazy, basically. Just like, can you imagine what Tolkien would say to the people who say I could care less when they mean I couldn't care less? Right? Basically, the people who use those two, I couldn't care less and I could care less, is essentially synonyms, like essentially equivalent expressions. Could you imagine, like, the look that Tolkien would give somebody who did that? Like, he wouldn't have that would not be okay, right? And oh yeah, exactly, right. I'm also imagining Tolkien waiting in a grocery lane for people who have 10 items or less. Yeah, sure. Anyway, yeah, it's yeah, not hard to imagine him ranting about that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Lady Lacana asks, is Tolkien using try to mean attempt or test? I think attempt in almost every case. I mean, there's an element, different meanings of the same word are not necessarily unrelated to each other, I mean, there's in the concept of attempting something, there is a sense of try in the sense of testing as well, like we're going to test to see if this works kind of thing. So the two are not unrelated, obviously, but it's attempt, I think, in all of these cases, I think. Yeah, there's no sense to try and get into Mordor. There were not to try and see. Yeah, I think it's attempt all the way. Yeah. Oh, yeah. As far as which one is correct, Boggs or John. Yeah, it's. I mean, again, as Rodadir says, it depends on what you mean. Right? I mean, if you mean that you do not care at all about something, then you would say, I could not care less. Like, it is not possible to care less. My caring is down to the theoretical minimum. Right? It is asymptoted at zero. You could not care. Whereas if you could care less, then you do care some, right? That means you do care a quantifiable amount, which, than which there is a significant range of lesser caring. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, but we shan't solve all of our cultural linguistic foibles this evening. But yes, Mike, it certainly was settled long past by Weird Al. Yes, word crimes is, of course, very excellent. Anyway, okay. Let us move back to the text then, because it's time to talk about Rohan. As oddly enthralling as this very obscure piece of syntactic debate we've been having is, and again, many thanks to Wolfhound for mentioning it. It was the very first comment made in class last week on last week's passage, and I was certainly not prepared to talk about that last week. So that was really cool. So thank you for this wonderful set of digressions. Okay, Rohan. So this is the passage we finished in last time, and we've got Gwai here. How far can you bear me? I said to Gwai here. Many leagues, said he, but not to the ends of the earth. I was sent to bear tidings, not burdens. Then I must have a steed on land, I said, and a steed surpassingly swift, for I have never had such need of haste before. Then I will bear you to Edoras, where the Lord of Rohan sits in his halls, he said, for that is not very far off. And I was glad, for in the Riddermark of Rohan the Rohirrim, the horse lords, dwell, and there are no horses like those that are bred in that great vale between the misty mountains and the white. Are the men of Rohan still to be trusted, do you think? I said to Gwaihir, for the treason of Saruman had shaken my faith. They pay a tribute of horses, he answered, and send many yearly to Mordor, or so it is said. But they are not yet under the yoke. But if Saruman has become evil, as you say, then their doom cannot be long delayed. Okay. All right. First of all, just as a historical note, this is in fact the passage that is the very first time. So when Gandalf was drafting his first the first copy, the first time Gandalf ever said this speech, in the first draft of the Council of Elrond, this is the moment when the concept of the Rohirrim emerged in Tolkien's mind for the first time. There had never been any hint that the Rohirrim existed until this moment. So this is Tolkien's normal kind of world building, or really world discovery on the fly. He's discovered the land of Gondor, earlier on, with trying to figure out the history of how Numenor are connected with all this stuff. But the kingdom of Ond, the kingdom of stone, we have the stone lords and the horse lords, essentially. So those emerged, both of them, in the context of the Council of Elrond. Gondor first, Rohan second. Countries spring out of the ground. Yes. Countries and legends spring forth out of the grass. It's exactly the experience of writing the Lord of the Rings, certainly. Okay. So, all right. Gwaihir's a question that was raised last time, which is an excellent question. What is the source of Gwaihir's information? Gandalf says, I must have a steed on land. That is, please don't drop me off in the middle of nowhere where I will be on foot. Because I not only need a steed, I need a steed surpassingly swift, for I have never had such need of haste before. Which sounds like a little bit of a guilt trip, if I'm being totally honest, right? Okay, mister, I can't bear you to the ends of the earth, but it sure would be handy right about now to have somebody to bear me up to the Shire. But if you can't, I understand. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Right. T. Schwab says, like an eagle, maybe. Yeah, maybe something like that would be awful handy just now. Yeah. I've never had such need of haste before. I don't know if that is an indirect approach on Gandalf's part to trying to talk Gwaihir in fact, to carrying him all the way. But it is also, of course, certainly just perfectly true on the face of it, that he needs a steed on land if Gwaihir is indeed going to insist on dropping him off. I will bear you to Edoras, where the Lord of Rohan sits in his halls, for that is not very far off. Gwaihir is familiar with the name of the capital city of Rohan, is not strange that he would know enough about local politics to know that. Then we get Gandalf's commentary. I was glad, for in the Riddermark of Rohan the Rohirrim, the horse lords, dwell, and there are no horses like those that are bred in that great vale between the misty mountains and the white. So one question that occurs to me is, for whose benefit is that sentence uttered? Certainly the hobbits, who may not have known of Rohan's. Certainly Frodo probably hasn't heard of Rohan yet, or at least there's no necessary reason to think that he has. There might maybe be others who don't know about Rohan. I mean, does Gimli know about Rohan? Does even Galdor from the Havens know about Rohan? I mean, it's a human land far away, certainly way far away from the Grey Havens, right? There's a whole lot of space in between, and there's no reason that, like, Círdan the Shipwright would have had any dealings with anyone from Rohan. Yeah, exactly. It's only been around for 500 years, as Mad Violinist and Fourth Dauntless are saying. Exactly. I mean, like, not only do you, as an elf, not only do you have to keep up with world politics, you have to keep up with current events, right? I mean, if you blink, 500 years later, this, like, yet another kingdom has grown up there. Yes, good. Emily points out that the elves don't even seem to know much about the Shire, and that's quite a bit closer. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. Drow Snake says perhaps Gandalf is giving context for why his horse is fast. Right, he is. He wants to explain what it means. Right, he quoted Gwaihir. He quoted Gwaihir as saying, "I will bear you to Edoras where the Lord of Rohan sits in his halls." And if you don't know what Rohan is, that's a big so what? Like, oh, okay, because that's supposed to mean something. Why do we care? Why is this important to the story? Well, it's important to the story because these are the horse lords we're talking about, the Rohirrim. And there are no horses like those bred in the Great Vale between the Misty Mountains and the White. So Gwaihir did... one effect, certainly, of that sentence in that paragraph is that Gandalf is definitely saying Gwaihir did the second best thing that he could for me, right? I mean, it would have been a little bit nice if he had just flown me straight up to the Shire, but failing that, and he seems to have had some reason not to do that, he did the next best thing, which is to put me down in the place where I could get the fastest horse in Middle-earth, basically. So that seems like a kind of, I don't know, not a vote of confidence in Gwaihir, but a bit of a kind of commendation in a sense. JJ says much faster than the stones the Gondorians try to ride. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Dan, you're right. Dan says, Rohan, some of you might know it better as Calenarthan. Yeah, except some of them might not even have tracked with that, right? Yeah, who knows how they remember it. It is possible that some of the Rohirrim, like some of the like the elves would know because the Rohirrim live next to Rohan, or sorry, they live in Rohan. They live next to Lothlorien, and so therefore, it like might be known. They have stories about the elves, so yes, that's possible. Though again, I wonder how much time does Galdor of the Havens spend, chilling and swapping stories with anybody from Lothlorien? I don't think very much, but yeah. So yes, it's likely that many people in the world need this particular piece of context. It's Gandalf, in his recollection, right, during the story, it's Gandalf who raises the question of the trustworthiness of the men of Rohan. Because remember, we're not told anything about them. I mean, that first paragraph right there, that's literally the sum total of our knowledge about Rohan, right? So we know that their place is called Edoras, which is enough already, by the way. The very first thing that we learn about them is that their language is based on Anglo-Saxon, because anybody who knows Anglo-Saxon is likely to recognize the word Edoras, which just means buildings in Anglo-Saxon, essentially. It's the plural for the word building. Structures, basic architectural structures. So yes, so they will. So Aedoros. So okay. So we know we should suspect there's an Anglo-Saxon linguistic connection there. They have a lord, and they're not far from Isengard. So those are the three facts that we know about Rohan so far. Gandalf adds more to our sum of information. The Rohirrim, the Horse Lords, which is of course a translation of Rohirrim. The Rohirrim, the Horse Lords, dwell. And there are no horses like those. Okay, so these are the Horse Lords. Notice what we don't have. There's no hint or indication of their allegiance to Gondor yet. And I mean in this paragraph, right? Yes, reread Tolkien, good, points out we do know about their gap. The gap of Rohan has come up. Has it by name? Has anyone named the gap of Rohan yet? In the council? Can somebody look that up quick for me? Has that phrase, gap of Rohan? It has, right? Did Boromir mention the gap of Rohan by name in his story? I know he came through the gap of Rohan, but did he say the phrase? As Brandon Minnick says, I've got to go to buildings to see King. Yeah, and that's the Anglo-Saxon experience right there. Sorry, the inside joke, of course, is that almost all of the kings of Rohan, their names basically mean king. It's like their names translate in Anglo-Saxon. It's like an Anglo-Saxon word that all of their names are an Anglo-Saxon word which, has been used to mean, ruler or king. Okay, great. JJ found it. Good. Gandalf mentioned it when he was describing the way to Isengard. Great. That is far south in Isengard and the end of the Misty Mountains, not far from the Gap of Rohan. Okay, great. So it has been mentioned. Great. And those, by the way, are not retcon, but those are later additions from his subsequent drafts. Good, Michael, thank you. I'd forgotten about that. Boromir did mention them. Good, so we have had a hint. Of the political leanings of Rohan. Good, I'd forgotten about that one. Yeah. Only from Rohan now will any men come to us when we call. Good, yes, good. So we do have that. If we are very retentive readers, very attentive and retentive readers, we will recall that Boromir has already alluded to them. And so therefore, we should remember that association. But Gandalf is uncertain. Are the men of Rohan still to be trusted, do you think? I said to Gwaihir, for the treason of Saruman had shaken my faith. The fact that he only says this because his faith had recently been shaken by the treason of Saruman does already put this in the context of that, like the normal presumption would be that they are to be trusted, right? They're not merely a dubious realm whose allegiances are generally unknown. They're people that he would normally have assumed he could trust. But since the whole Saruman experience, now his faith has been shaken, and so he's not sure whether or not he can trust them. Yeah, and Michael, you're right. A normal reader would have encountered that Boromir quote a lot earlier on, or a lot closer together, right? It was much more recently that Boromir mentioned that than it might feel like in the context of this class. That's very true. Yes, and Brandon, I do agree that there is the sense here. We do get the sense that Rohan is gravely threatened by Saruman's fall. They would be under great pressure from him being on their border. Yes, exactly. They're nearby, and that's bad, certainly for them, right? but it also does, are they working hand in glove with Saruman? Because with Saruman betraying them, one of two things has to be true, right? Either they are not to be trusted because they're working with Saruman, or they're about to get stumped by Saruman. There's really no middle ground possible for the people of Rohan, right? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Gwaihir's answer. They pay a tribute of horses and send many yearly to Mordor, or so it is said. But they are not yet under the yoke. But if Saruman has become evil as you say, then their doom cannot be long delayed. Now, this, I agree with many of you. The fact that I put off talking about this for so long doesn't mean I'm not interested in it. I think we learn more from this paragraph about Gwaihir and the sort of mission of the Great Eagles than we have done anywhere else in this whole, this whole section so far. Gwaihir, obviously collects. He doesn't just watch from a height, right? This is not, he's keeping track, right? He is keeping tabs on what happens. And not only when Radagast sends him out on, fact-finding missions, right? On spying missions. In fact, again, it seems to support the explanation for why Radagast goes to the Eagles here, right? Because they are likely to be well informed, right? They keep tabs on what's happening in the lands about. But you might think that they would do that primarily visually, right? That the Eagles, being who and what they are, would be primarily spying out the land in a purely visual sense. That they would be looking out over the lands, not that they would be listening orally to rumors and stories about what is happening in the lands. But they have heard rumors. They have heard rumors that the Rohirrim pay a tribute of horses. And pay it and send many yearly to Mordor, or so it is said. If he hadn't added that last tantalizing, and I agree, praise tantalizingly, passive construction, or so it is said, we might have thought that he saw this, right? That he saw a tribute of horses being driven towards Mordor on an annual basis, right? That would seem to be a phenomenon that would be visually observable if he were in fact keeping careful track of what's going on in this area. But that's not what he says. He hasn't seen this. He's not speaking of it as a fact that he's observed. He's speaking of it only as a rumor that he's heard. And yes, Mad Violinist, I agree. The general usage of "so it is said," that passive construction, it does. So it is said does exactly what passive constructions can sometimes do. That led your English teacher to always tell you not to do it, right? The reason that high school English teachers tend to tell their students never to use the passive voice, which is kind of a silly thing to say. But there's reason behind it. And the reason is that students, especially expository writers lacking confidence, will often hide behind the passive voice as a way to diffuse responsibility when they're not sure what's going on and they want to just kind of note that something appears to be happening, right? And so they will say things like, like in an English paper, they'll say things like, it can be seen that this happens, right? Rather than say this person does this or this author does this or something like that. So when you use the passive voice in that way, you're simply concealing. You've removed the doer of the action completely from the sentence, right? And that is sometimes actively dishonest in the classic mistakes were made thing, where you don't want to admit that you made mistakes or your people made mistakes. So you just say mistakes were made, concealing or attempting to draw away attention from the doer of the action. But the citation needed is a fun example of a passive construction like that. Who needs the citation exactly, right? Introduce me to the person who is in need of that citation. But anyway, yeah. So, okay. The reason, of course, I say that it's kind of silly to say never use the passive voice is there are many situations in which the passive voice is perfectly appropriate. What the passive voice does, of course, is reverse the emphasis on the subject of the action and the object of the action, right? It makes the object of the action the subject of the sentence. So if you want to draw attention, if your sentence is primarily about somebody who is the victim of an action, then you use the passive voice, right? Whereas if your sentence is really about the doer of the action, you use the active voice. But this is an example of the passive voice, which is deliberately concealing the doer of the action, but not for dishonest purposes, because as Mad Violinist pointed out originally, it's not attributed, right? You say, so it is said, when you want to point to a general rumor going about, but that does not have, it's a citation needed situation, right? Evil Dr. Cannon and Emily are both saying that scientific papers are almost exclusively in the passive voice. Yes, for very good reason, right? Because, of course, the whole concept of the scientific method is about the actions that are being done, the observations that are being made, right? The conclusions that are being drawn, and I'm deliberately using the passive voice in those ways. The doer of those actions is the scientist. But if the scientist is the hero of the scientific paper, he's doing it wrong, right? That's bad science. If you're the protagonist of your lab write-up, you're probably doing it wrong, right? It's supposed to be about the stuff that happened, not about you who did the observations. Yeah, exactly. It's about the findings, not about the finder. Yes, exactly. So that makes sense. It makes sense that would happen, though it can lead to some troubles. But anyway. And by the way, I also think that one of the reasons your English teachers tend to tell you not to use the passive voice is that they're trying to make your English papers sound more like science papers, because science is highly respected and nobody gives a crap about the humanities. So if you make your English paper sound like a scientific paper, then it will sound more objective and like dignified, right? Which is one of the main reasons I disapprove, because it's a quite different thing. Because what ends up happening, of course, in English papers is you have quite dubious conclusions or uncertain observations or theories that are in fact the theories of the writer of the paper being put forward as if they're just kind of happening right in the story. Yeah. Anyway. And again, of course, I hope you understand I'm not insulting science by saying this, but I am, without shame, expressing my disapproval of this particular impulse in academia to try to dress the humanities up to make them look like the sciences in order to give them more perceived dignity. The dignity of the humanities is entirely other. We do not need to imitate the sciences in order to have dignity. It's a different thing and valuable for different reasons. That it's like such a profound missing of the point to try to do that. But anyway, whatever. Okay. So back to Guai here. So it is said. The striking thing about that to me, as I say, he's not just observing. He is not only telling Gandalf what he has spied from the skies, or even what other eagles have spied from the skies. Because even that, presumably, he would state as fact. You know, he would say something like, I have seen, you know, the Rohirrim sending their horses, you know, to Mordor, or something like that. But anyway. Yeah. Did I use trying to again, Nancy? Trying to dress up the humanities? Yeah. Yeah. Now, again, my usage is not evidence because my usage is going to be skewed by other things. But I think my usage there did fit the pattern, right? To try to dress. It's the dressing up that's the point. That's the emphasis there. Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Zephan. I think people who are not at all interested in the humanities, we might have already lost them at to try to and to try and like an hour ago. You're probably right about that. Anyway, okay. Okay. All right. But again, the point is, there's rumors. He's pointing explicitly to rumors. Things that people are saying. News that is circulating. Right? Which he has probably not just like picked up in the local pub by accident. He seems to be keeping tabs on what's going on. He also, of course, as we will learn, is inaccurate. This is not true. It is not true that the Rohirrim pay a tribute of horses to Mordor and send many yearly to Mordor. That is wrong. Now, we will learn later on that many horses from Rohan do in fact go annually to Mordor. So there might be some truth that lies behind this rumor. Yeah, exactly. Sorry that people are referring to the Eagle and Child pub, which is doubtless the pub that Guai here would go to. Yeah, no doubt. Though hopefully not so many children would be going at the same time, presumably. But yeah, remembering ahead, Éomer has heard that the same rumor exists, right? He has also heard of this rumor. This is why I don't think this can only be an eagle thing, right? This can just be like something circulating among eagles. You can imagine like one eagle sees a group of Rohan horses going, being brought across the border by orcs towards Mordor and says, oh, it looks like, and draws a false conclusion, right? That the Rohirrim are paying tribute. And told it to Gwaihir, and Gwaihir says, it's said that they send many yearly to Mordor. I can imagine that coming about, right? But that story would hardly reach Éomer's ears, which it seems to have done, right? He has heard that the scuttlebutt around, Rovanian is that the Rohirrim are sending tribute to Mordor, and he's offended by that. So, yeah, I can't imagine the eagles and the farmers are gossiping much over sheep carcasses. That seems unlikely. Yeah. Anyway, where he heard it, we can only guess where he heard it. But let me try to guess. What are the options? What are the options? Assuming the rumor, given the fact that Éomer will have heard of it too, so let's go with the assumption. Let's go with the assumption that the rumor is human in origin. Okay? Let's say it's human in origin. Not avian in origin. What humans could possibly have, now elves could maybe possibly have done it as well, but that seems less likely. I mean, do the Galadhrim watch the Rohirrim and think this, and would they tell the eagles? I don't know. So, Michael, that's exactly the question. What humans would Gwaihir have been talking to? Radagast, sure, but Radagast himself doesn't speak to many humans, so he's not a very good source in that way. I agree with Luke, and I think one or two others, maybe the Beornings. The Beornings seem some strong candidates. I can imagine Gwaihir talking to the Beornings. I can imagine... I mean, it would be ironic if you were talking to the Beornings, because, of course, the kingdom of the Beornings, like that, those are the people who have the yew bows that we were talking about before. Curious says it's easy. A human says it, a fox overhears them, and the fox tells the eagle. There you go. There you go. Yeah, or possibly a thrush. Yeah, also possible. See, Lady Lakata, they do say in The Hobbit that they stay away from humans, etc. But that the Hobbit, the eagle hobbits, the Hobbit eagles, eagle hobbits are totally different. The Hobbit eagles are very different from the great eagles. Capital G, capital E. We're in a different place with Gwaihir here. Burra eagle hobbits. Something like that. Yeah. Fourth Thoughtless says, fan art challenge, eagle hobbits. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun. But no, D. Schwab, Bob is not an eagle. Of that I'm pretty confident. Okay. I could buy the Beornings. The Beornings are also far enough removed. Where would they hear the rumors from? Yeah, exactly, Mike. It would have to be people close enough to Rohan to care and to observe, to have any basis of observing this, right? I mean, there's definitely grounding for these rumors, right? I mean, the orcs are stealing horses and taking them to Mordor. So horses from Rohan are ending up in Mordor. So that's a thing. It could come up the Anduin. Yes. Possible that the elves of Lorien know it and tell the elves of Mirkwood, who tell the Beornings. It's pretty indirect, though. Yeah. Wild men of the woods? No, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. Dunlendings? No. I don't. First of all, it's the wrong side, right? I mean, the traffic in horses, however it's going down, is over on the east side, on the opposite end of Rohan from the Dunlendings. So I don't think they would even be able to observe it. Yeah. Right. Trifle says we should look at this from the other side. Who would Éomer have heard this rumor from, or who is he talking to? I wonder, has the rumor been told in Gondor? The Gondorians would be very interested to hear this, right? If there's even a chance that the Rohirrim have begun to deal in trade or tribute with Mordor, that's big ol' news in the South, right? Who would dare to tell it to Éomer? Yeah. Yeah, no, I know that Boromir stoutly disbelieves it. We'll get to that very soon. Next passage, I think. But and I don't doubt that many of the other people in Gondor would respond that way. My point is just that, like, whether you hotly disagree with it or not, the rumor is news in Gondor. So the Gondorians are the only neighbors of the Rohirrim who would really care whether or not that rumor was true. I agree, Trifle. Boromir has not heard the rumor before, but there's plenty of time. Éomer might have only heard quite recently, like within the last 3 months, for instance, that rumor was being, somebody from Gondor might have said or something. Yeah. I feel, we don't know for sure, but I feel pretty certain that Boromir hasn't heard it. At least his response strikes me that way. Is it possible the rumor is spread among the Rohirrim themselves? By Wormtongue, you mean? Yeah. Let's see. Let's think about Saruman's angle on this. Does Saruman have reason to try to induce the faithful among the Rohirrim to suspect or fear that their leadership has struck a deal with Sauron? Yes. Sure. Yeah, definitely. One way or the other, if the people who hear the rumor are staunchly against Sauron, then it's going to set them against the king. If they're ambivalent about Sauron, then it could swing them to be like, oh, well, Theoden is okay with dealing with Mordor, so maybe it's not so bad. Yes. Yeah. So that, I kind of have to think if that rumor is spreading in Rohan, it would have to be maliciously spread. I can't see that, but because, I mean, it's a big accusation. It's a big accusation, as Boromir is going to spell out pretty soon. This would be a massively countercultural thing. This is not, oh, hey, I guess we're, I've heard rumors that we have friendly relations with Mordor. This is not that. This is somebody is selling horses, to Mordor in tribute. That's a big deal. The shipping off of horses. Yeah, Sam says it would be like sending children to Nazi Germany. Almost in that category. I mean, in that direction, certainly. I mean, towards that end of the spectrum, I would say. Which is why I think it would tend to be, which is why I think if the rumor is spreading in Rohan, it's got to be spread maliciously. Yeah. Exactly. So, if the origin of the rumors were to be Rohan, were to be Wormtongue, essentially, right? If this were to be a Wormtongueism, which does seem to me plausible, just in the interest of destabilizing, at least destabilizing the kingdom, at best actively warming it up to the idea of alliance with Mordor. Then how would Gwaihir hear it? How would Gwaihir hear it? Hmm. Yeah, seeding hopelessness, D. Schwab says. Right, right, sure. Right, from crows. I think it's possible. I think it's possible. Um, Refugees from the South. Maybe, maybe, maybe. I think it's possible that, so it is said among the birds. I don't know how many birds would be listening to this kind of thing. Some people are suggesting that it could be from orcs. I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't. I would. This doesn't sound to me like an orc rumor. It really doesn't. I mean, that orcs might have been found with horses. That seems perfectly plausible. But that orcs themselves would be promulgating the rumor or boasting about tribute, they wouldn't. That's not. I don't think that's the direction they would boast. They would boast about stealing them, right? They would boast about stealing them and slaughtering the people who are watching them, wouldn't they? Wasn't that the direction that orc boasting would tend? Rather than the much more politically devious, oh, yeah, these were given to us in tribute. Yeah. Right, and who would give credence to the orcs? Yes. Yeah, but I mean, if you thought you were catching them candidly admitting something to the, among themselves or something, I could see that. But yeah, I don't see orcs promulgating this particular idea. Um, yeah. Um, Bobby's wondering if Wormtongue and Saruman could have told Radagast what people are saying. Could this come from Saruman to Gwaihir through Radagast? Presumably, when Radagast came to visit Saruman, they had more than a 5-minute conversation and talked about things other than Gandalf. That's an interesting idea. That's a very interesting idea. That's almost like an Occam's razor solution, honestly. Because if there is one biped with whom we know for an absolute fact that Gwaihir has regular conversation, it's Radagast, right? So therefore, the simplest solution would it be possible for him to have learned it from the one source that we know he has, which is Radagast? And yes, but the answer is only yes if the source of this story is Saruman, which, as we said, is plausible and makes sense. So it would get to Rohan and Aemir then through Wormtongue, right? Again, it's Saruman's stratagem to get this rumor in circulation. He wants people to doubt Rohan, and he wants the Rohirrim to doubt their leaders and stuff. So it gets to Rohan via Wormtongue. It gets to, Saruman, messages Wormtongue about this, roll out the tribute to Sauron rumor, and then he tells Radagast, hoping that it will get around from Radagast. That works for me. That holds together. That is by far the simplest solution. That is definitely the Occam's razor solution to this dilemma. And if Saruman himself handed it on to Radagast as a rumor, not as an authoritative thing like, Radagast, I must tell you troubling news that I have seen that, or that I know for a fact that this happens. If instead he told Radagast, I have heard tale, and I have heard story. I have heard. If he just said to him, it is said, right? It is said that Rohan does this. Radagast would have repeated it as rumor to Gwaihir, and so Gwaihir is here repeating it as rumor. Yes. Yep. Yep. Um, he doesn't need Radagast in particular to doubt Rohan Turambar, but he would know, Saruman would know, that Radagast has many connections up in the north. Just so to sow questions of, remember, one of his strategies, right, is to minimize resistance. So if anybody that Radagast talks to, namely like the Bjornings, maybe the Wood Elves, maybe even the, Galathrim, if all of those people in the area are thinking, well, now Rohan has gone over to Sauron, how long until Gondor, basically it sort of suggests the tide is turning, it's useless to resist, that kind of, so I think it would, it's not, I don't think that he's counting on it to do a massive, he's hoping for a massive payback, a payoff from this little gambit. But any payoff that there would be good from his perspective, I think. Yeah. We don't know for a fact that he still talks to the Bjornings. We know that Bjorn himself knew him, and thought him not a bad fellow, as wizards go, but we don't know for a fact but I don't see any reason to think he doesn't. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Mad Violinist. A classic disinformation operation out of Orthanc. That works for me. That seems the best explanation. Yeah, JJ, you're right. It's a perfect way for him to set up a military campaign against Rohan, right? If he's planning war with Rohan, as you say, the more rumors there are out there, true or false, the more likely political allies will leave well enough alone. People are less likely to come scampering to the defense of Rohan if the rumors are circulating that they've thrown in with Sauron. Indeed, it could even help to cover Saruman's trail, because even after war begins with Sauron, between Saruman and Rohan, if enough people believe that Rohan is thrown in with Sauron, there is at least doubt about what's, it doesn't necessarily prove that Saruman's gone bad, right? It can enable him to continue like plausible deniability to even to the others in the Council of the Wise, right? If it's generally known that, or suspected at least, that Rohan's own loyalties might be becoming dubious. Yes, exactly, Sam. There's Saruman fighting Mordor's protectorate, right? Striking a good stroke for the people. With orcs and orc riders, yes, but rumors about that are probably greatly exaggerated, right? That's probably not. It's probably just a malicious rumor itself, right? If there are orcs involved, there are probably orcs involved on the side of Rohan, which is, as everybody knows, right now, Mordor's number one ally. So, yeah. No, it fits in all kinds of ways into Saruman's point of view. Yeah. No, you're right, Evil Dr. Cannon. It's difficult to explain his attacking with Orcmen. It's difficult to explain to eyewitnesses, right? But only to eyewitnesses, right? There are battles of orcs in the fields of Rohan. Again, if there would be, right, if Rohan was paying tribute to Mordor. Yeah. Yeah, it works. Yeah. Bogzarjan asks, why does Mordor need lots of horses? Need lots of black horses. Well, first of all, how many they must go through training them to carry Nazgul? Really, there's got to be a significant fail percentage there of horses that just refuse or die or you know, yeah, yeah, I gotta think that it takes a herd, to narrow it down to the candidates who are going to be, actually carrying Nazgul. Um, um, and yes, it is true that the rest of their cavalry is on black horses as well. It's not just the Nazgul who ride the black horses. Um, yeah, yeah, yep, exactly. Um, what about the men of Nurn? Well, if you mean like what about any cavalry forces of the men of Nurn, yes. But if you're asking about why don't the men of Nurn breed horses, the answer is, well, they might, but I mean, you want the best horses for your cavalry, and everybody knows that there are no horses like those that are bred in the Great Vale between the Misty Mountains and the White. Even Sauron knows that. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Excellent. That was good. I think we solved the mystery there. Hey, maybe two mysteries: the grammatical as well as or the syntactic as well as the story. But I'm feeling more and more confident that this is almost certainly an Isengard disinformation campaign. That just seems to fit in almost every way. And that would make Radagast the very logical transmitter of this rumor up to Gwaihir. And of course would also explain why Gwaihir's information is bad. And he wouldn't be shy about passing on this information despite its dubious nature, because it is very likely that the Eagles would in fact have seen evidence that backs it up. They would have seen orcs driving herds of horses from Rohan towards Mordor. That would have happened, right? Most likely. So, and it fits. It fits the story. Yeah. Good. Next week we should try and get through an entire slide, you think? Yeah. We could even try to get through an entire slide, I think. Yeah. Well, but tonight we also had a long syntactic discussion, and I was extra late tonight from coming late from another live broadcast, which went longer than I expected. So all things together, half a slide tonight, but that's okay. Okay. The word slide sounds inappropriately fast for what we do here, Kurtzimus. Yeah, I suppose that's fair enough. Yeah. Anyway. All right. You think they're more like slips than slides, JJ? Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. Okay. All right, it is field trip time, so we're going to switch over to our field trip, so you can join me on Twitch. I'm going to turn off the Twitter feed, so thanks to those who joined me there, and you can join me at twitch.tv/SignumU. Thanks, everybody. Bye now. Well, not bye to everybody, just bye to the Twitter folks. Okay, good evening. How are you, Valori?
How are you?
Good.
Let's see.
Good, okay.
Start following up real quick.
Yeah. Okay, oh, hang on. Gotta get it to re-engage with my... There we go. Okay. Oh, sorry. Lost it. Missed it.
Oh, dear.
I was doing other things. And
all right, okay.
I was just about to click it, and then it went away. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, it never seems to be up long enough quite for my liking.
Yes.
But then I'm usually doing 3 things at once, like, knitting and being on Discord and
looking
on Facebook and all those things.
I'm going back to Blomgard.
Okay, yep.
where we left off last time.
Yes. Guard of the flowers.
Yeah. Up here in Flower Watch or whatever.
I am almost disappointed that we don't see more of sentient animals in this other than that one fox in the Shire, you know?
I think that the sentient animals get all dubious, right? That is like all uncertain about it. It's not that we don't have them. I mean, we get Gwai here, and we get Shadowfax, who seems to be sentient, and you know, but we don't just get like garden variety sentient animals like giant spiders or giant wargs or you know. Yeah.
Of course, when I think of eagles hearing gossip, I always think of the Yggdrasil and the eagle that sits on top and the squirrel that's running back and forth giving him all the gossip from everything.
Right.
Ratatosk.
You know, there are not very many wells in Lotro.
Huh. I've fallen down a couple of them.
Well, in Moria, sure, but...
Is this a falling down well?
I'm scared to find out. No, looks like no.
No.
Okay.
It's a very well built well.
Oh man, did you see the fan art challenge accepted by Dragon Tarakni, the Bure Eagle Hobbit?
Oh no!
Yeah, that's pretty
Who
good.
will be named Bob, probably.
Yes, Bob the Bure Eagle Hobbit. Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's gonna look like a kappa.
That's excellent.
Or Tengu or something. Oh, Dime, where?
JJ says whatever Bob is, it's not that. Yeah.
Oh, its name is not Bob then.
Well, you know, it's... Oh, man. Okay. All right, so let's head back across the river.
Okay.
And let's go back to archaeology. Landscape archaeology here. Okay, yeah, this is the way out.
Oh, it's getting so cold.
Okay. And I'd say we should probably head down so that we can get to the water without jumping off cliffs.
I don't think I've seen this place in day before. Couldn't recognize it.
Yeah, it's okay, I just sprained my ankle on the water, I guess. Okay.
Well, you got to keep your feet together when you hit the water.
Right, yeah. Uh-oh. Waterfall. That looks exciting.
Yep. Back on shore, back on shore.
Can we go over the waterfall? Would that be fun, or would that not be fun?
Depends on your definition of fun.
Okay.
I mean, I'll watch.
Okay, let's see. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a fairly significant waterfall right there.
Yeah, I think that would have been a misadventure.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going down the cliff face over here. Yeah, okay.
What?
No problem. See, look, it didn't even break my ankle.
I've gotten to be
who's this chap? Oh, it's a relic hunter. Right, okay.
Yep.
Well, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so we're going across here. We're south of the diggings.
Uh-huh.
We're south of the diggings. And let's see what we can find. Here is evidence of old diggings by Saruman, right, scattered around. So place like wrecks of... So where he dredged this whole place, right, before he found his site. Right. Okay, so what we're looking for, what I am primarily looking for is any archaeological evidence of Gollum's old village. I want to look for what's on fire over there? Oh, it's a forlorn glimmer. It's a mob.
It is fire.
I see. Okay, so we've got like will-o'-the-wisp action and giant frogs. Yep. Okay. Wait, I just got the Dead Slayer? So the glimmers are dead people?
Oh yeah, we generally only see wisps in areas that are kind of haunted.
Is there explained lore behind that?
I don't know. I think where's the first time we see them? Is that Evendom? Like on the beach near Oat Barton? No, it was the Barrows. Barrow Down's first place we see him.
Barrows.
Well, Lori, can we follow up real quick so I can put shield wall on Corey?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
But we're halting the party. We're halting the party real quick. You gotta hold still or it just don't work.
Oh, sorry. Apologize. Okay. So I'm thinking I'm going to go around the Gladden Fields, but I'm going to start... Are we good?
No, I don't. Hang on. Your shield wall's not up.
Oh, okay.
I'm not in the party yet.
Oh, where are you?
I'm in the red right here, bouncing.
Oh. Sorry about that. Chris, is that correct?
Oh, yes.
Alright. I gotta convert to raid, and then I gotta do it, and then I gotta move you over.
So I'm thinking we should be looking in the hills along the edge of the Gladdenfield lowlands here.
Let's move the hunter over, and then let's see, we put arson over there so D-May doesn't die. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Okay. See, I'm not sure if they would have lived in holes, but that's the theory I'm going to go with until I have any reason to think otherwise. So I'm going to start down here and let's go around the edge and see if we can see anything.
I think they made reference of his grandmother's house, though, not his grandmother's hole.
Did they? I don't remember the house.
I'm not sure.
Or if they did, I wondered if it was a
It could have meant clan, kicked out of his grandmother's clan.
Clan, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Is this far enough down?
But also they lived on the riverbank, and we knew that they climbed trees, which already makes them kind of singular hobbits.
Oh, it looks like JJ doesn't have... Greenstand needs an invite, too. Greenstand needs an invite, also.
Greenstand.
He's the green guy. Guy with the green cloak.
The green guy. Okay, hang on.
In the back there. With the bog guardian.
Up there you are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now there's a road here, but it's probably more path than... Well, this is the road to the Duskenvale, which I don't want to go on.
That's near the dwarf, near the dwarf.
I want to cut across to the other side and see if I can kind of loop back. Yeah, I want to follow it kind of inland here. See if I can find it with what we see. They would be close to the river, but of course, and this seems far away from the river, but again, the river could have come in much closer at that point. In fact, we have evidence that it did from the site of the successful diggings.
Oh, geez, why is this thing killing me? Wow.
Wait, who was killing you? Who
a
killed
bug killed me. I couldn't land a hit on him for some reason.
A bug killed you?
Yep.
Oh, man. Can anyone res Linus?
Yeah, someone's doing it.
Oh, good. From bug death?
Yeah, death by bug for some reason.
Which I've often felt while in a swamp.
Yeah,
might
I've been
happen.
camping on the Potomac.
Yeah,
I get
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. This is feeling like more hobbity terrain, but so I'm just looking for the edge here. Is there still a... No, there's a gradual descent. Okay, I just wanted to see if there was a cliff there. Okay. Oh no, that's a wheel. It's a very Sarumanic wheel over here. But wait, there's a hole in the... There's a cave.
Mm-hmm.
The Warrens of Toonmelin, huh?
Warren sounds promising.
Does. Okay. So was there... Let's see if there's an excavation in here.
Oh, look at the furniture.
Oh,
and the door frame.
round door frames. Hello.
Round door frames.
Oh, Eureka.
I recognize those cabinets too.
Yes, their
Cage.
cabinetry is similar. Okay. Well, then. And who's squatting in here? Who are these guys? Who are the mobs in there?
Looks as half
Ruffians?
orc, ruffian, relic hunter.
Okay. So notice how it's like a combination. Notice how the walls are stone, right? The walls are laid stone. Okay. So we have in fact found the halls of Gollum's ancestral home, I'm gonna guess.
Oh, it's hard to see with all these roots.
Oh yeah, overseers, and who are you? You're a hunter? Relic hunter?
Yeah.
Okay. You're a relic hunter. So you're just some of Saruman's guys. So we could see at the entrance that Saruman had been doing excavations here.
Uh-huh.
Which explains why they were covered over. So right, so Jade is wondering, are they structurally stacked stone, or is it just a facade over the cave's natural stone? I'm guessing facade, but I mean, it would seem a little bit odd to have a cave and then to be having to, like, if it's a large cave and you're building stone walls inside a cave, unless you were just uncomfortable, unless you were a small person who was uncomfortable with a big, huge vaulted cave like like we see in Moria, for instance.
Yeah.
And wanted a smaller, cozier thing.
Did you see this Viking statue over here? The one that we've seen in the other ones?
No, there's a statue. Hang on, I just wanted to see.
It was
what
back
in
where
this room.
it was back where the ruffians were.
Oh no, I missed it.
What it's doing here, I have no idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the statue with the eyebrows.
Yeah.
And the pouchy eyes. It's the hungover Viking. Yeah. Well, certainly the way that it's set there certainly doesn't lead one to suspect that this is its original site.
No, it looks like the ruffians were trying to like shore up the ceilings with it and just sort of got distracted.
Right. Or even hoarding it.
Ooh. Better keep this stick, might be worth something.
Well, antiquaries might be interested. I'm not sure.
It belongs in a museum.
That's it. Exactly. I'm just trying to imagine these half-orc overseers saying that. It belongs in a museum. Okay, orc banner. Probably half-hearted orc banner. Half-hearted attempt to shore up the stone walls, which might have been bulging a bit here. Hence the haphazard boards nailed onto it.
Yeah, it really does look like they're just trying to shore up the ceiling so it wouldn't collapse on them while they raided it.
Yep. The beer barrels. Still here.
Oh no, it's a haunted burrow. Ew, I think this would actually be worse than the haunted burrow to be, chest deep in fluid.
Right. Is that a corpse or a party member?
Huh? Where? I see a dog. Oh, no, that's a...
Dead woodman.
It's a dead woodman.
It's a corpse, huh?
Yeah.
It's an NPC corpse?
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. I don't... well, I think there's only one thing that's obvious about this corpse. His cause of death. He doesn't have the little wooden talisman.
Oh, yeah.
It's obviously why he died.
Oh, gosh, I hope that doesn't mean he's cursed or something in his beliefs.
When I think it's just like, like what the woodmen's mothers always tell them,
Yeah.
if you leave the house without your little wooden talisman on your belt or around your neck, no one's, then like something terrible is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is extremely well preserved, Dan. There's no question about that.
Oh, this was recent. This is most definitely recent.
Okay, so the flooding of the lower levels here again suggests, as we've seen, the change of the
riverbed, yeah.
Of the riverbed, yeah.
Training dummies. Someone's
Training
appropriated
dummies
this
and
room.
shields, yeah. I mean, we saw some piles of skulls and things. Oh, a female.
Skull piles, eh?
A woman ruffian, whom we haven't seen yet in here. None of them... Does he have a ram on his belt buckle? Well, anyway. Okay, the wall's not doing so well in here.
Yeah, the question being, where did these guys come from?
The ruffians?
Yeah, did they look like villagers we've seen before? Did they look like the villagers in the places we've been visiting?
Don't they look like the the diggers, the archaeological team? The Saramanic?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, where did the archaeological team come from? Where did he farm these people from? Oh, these are new stores. These aren't old preserved stores. These are... Although that loaf's looking pretty blue on top.
Yeah, these are new stores. In which makes sense. The bread would probably have gone bad in 500 years.
Yeah, one of the loaves on top of the stacks actually looked pretty blue. Barracks.
Okay. Right, yeah, these are the ruffians' barracks.
Yep. And let's see, we got a glowing page. Did I pick that up? Birch bark page. Caught a thieving by his kin, cried cravenly to keep his skin, squawk and simper, squeal and sob, he fled a howling from the mob. So, more again about the story of Gollum.
Yep. Yeah.
What is it?
Or is it?
Sounds like it.
Yep. Ooh, somebody's eating good there. This must be Captain's rations over here.
Yeah, the table is very well set over there.
So,
hard to say what this room would have been in the original construction. Oh, look at that!
especially
a Hobbit
if
picture.
if the barrel racks are new. Oh wow,
That's Shire Make right there.
that's Shire make. So stolen, or is that just a folk art style?
Well, or yeah, is it evidence that Gollum himself once wore a waistcoat?
And
I
he
would
knows what a blue sky is.
I wouldn't right. I wouldn't think so because this hobbit is smoking and Gollum certainly had never I mean smoking was only discovered more recently.
Yeah, pipeweed wasn't grown out here.
Right, JJ's wondering if this is Smeagol's picture ID. Probably
Yeah.
not. Probably not. Yeah,
His
no,
picture hangs in Bag End.
right. Yeah, it's what I was
It
thinking.
does. Oh, it's a Baggins portrait. I wonder if somebody found. I wonder if the name Baggins got cropped up, and this is like Odo or Bungo, Bingo, somebody, some other Baggins.
Yeah, as Emily says, it could have been brought from the Shire with Saruman's pipeweed. Right. And JJ says it's the artist's rendering that Gollum has been using to ask around. Have you seen this Hobbit? Baggins?
The hairline might be different, and I
Right.
don't think it's this sunny today, but have you seen him?
Right.
Yes.
We hates it? Yes.
Oop, mob respawn.
I mean, there is obviously a Saruman bringing in the big guns, the whole menagerie. There is an Isengard connection, of course, with the Shire through the half-orcs that are here. Tomas is thinking perhaps it's just a pictorial manual on how to use the pipeweed. That seems like the most likely explanation yet. Lotho got a copy of this portrait at a discount and included it with the shipment of pipeweed as an illustration of how to smoke it. This is what you're supposed to do with it.
Actually, more to the fact, it could be the image of the person. It could be like Odo Longborough, who grows the pipeweed.
Yeah, so it's like his personal stamp, right?
Yeah, his business card.
His business card. Yes. Yes.
Hobbits would have calling cards, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well,
this is intriguing.
I don't see too much. I think there was another direction we didn't go yet. Oh, look, he's got like a cleaver. Like he's actually involved in food preparation.
This looks like one of those hasty orc weapons.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. Okay, I think it was in this room. Yeah, it was in this room.
Oh, hang on, you're kiting a bunch of things.
Oh, sorry. I'll get my links to help out.
It's fine. Your shield wall.
Yeah. Okay, she's shoveling underwater, which is awkward.
Well, I think she's standing on garbage. Yeah, she was
Right.
standing on garbage over here.
Yeah, there's also like 4 inches of water on the ground, though, on top of the garbage.
Man, this is a warren.
Yeah. A regular warren, by all accounts. So, yeah, and these are obviously, again, modern stores.
Yep.
So I'm trying to look through to the walls and things to see if I can see any other evidence of any contemporaneous.
Judging from the garbage on the floor, I'm feeling like anything that was in here before definitely would have rotted away by now,
Yes.
especially with the introduction of water.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yep. Okay. So we found they do have wood floors. Yes, you're right, JJ. And that
Yeah, look at that.
that also does suggest to me the stone facade, or even if it wasn't a facade, could there be a larger cave around this, but they decided to build smaller passages inside, or maybe maybe that's why it's so Warren like. is that it does actually follow the natural tunnel, because in some places like this, it looks more like a natural cave, right? You can see the evidence, like here where the stone, the stacked stone wall breaks off, and the, you know, sort of the rubble of just a natural cave wall seems to begin.
What did they do in these rooms?
Yeah, there are lots of rooms, but they don't seem to. It's not like bedrooms. You know, like there's. It's all flow through rooms, right? Like they were. Most of these rooms were public rooms in some sense.
I did see some closed doors, which might indicate bedrooms.
Yep, exactly. There were some, but yeah. So I think it probably is following the natural tunnel. But that they didn't just want to live in a rough-hewn tunnel. They had they have all the wooden beams, the wooden ceiling and wooden floors, and the stone walls that they constructed, not leveled off. You know, they're not block walls or brick walls, and you can't even really see much in the way of mortar here.
I wonder if there was plaster put on this that eventually sort of sloughed off.
Oh, yeah, I wonder, maybe. That's very possible. There could have been plaster, even like painted plaster over this. That's kind of nice to imagine. Yeah, imagining these beams, all the beams, both of the doorways and the ceilings, sort of new and stained, and then the walls plastered and painted. Yeah.
Plus you'd want to coat it with something to stave off the damp if you got all this wood in here.
Right.
Would be rather insalubrious.
Yes. Yeah. Now, presumably the floors weren't, 3 inches deep in water, but.
Well, yeah, but even then you'd still get some pretty bad moisture out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But yeah, it is interesting. It doesn't follow the traditional Hobbit tunnel where it's a straight gallery with rooms branching off of it.
Yes, exactly. And what was I saying? I was going to say that it certainly shows, when Gandalf says that he has no doubt that Gollum's grandmother was a matriarch, a very, a great person in her way. This is a fine structure, right? I mean, it's fairly advanced artistically. I mean, if we imagine it in the state that we're describing, with newly stained, sanded and stained ceiling beams, floors, wall beams, and then
carpets,
nice painted plaster, on top of the stone, and then, as you say, rugs and carpets and tiling, maybe even in places. I think this could be Bag End. Like, there's no obvious drop off in sort of artistry or technology between. There's nothing that says primitive hobbits about this.
No, these are living just as comfortable as any hobbits we'd see nowadays.
Yeah, and as JJ says, it seems like it would have been about as grand as Brandy Hall. Yes, it really does seem very grand, and in exactly that kind of way. Of course, it reminds me of Brandy Hall, JJ, because it's called a warren, as you know.
It makes me wonder. Like, we know Bilbo's flow-through plan for his house, but I wonder if like the Brandybuck's built more along this style. Especially if they're living in a hill, it would definitely be like there's different layers and levels and different passageways. Kind of sad we never get to see inside of it.
Yes, me too. I was glad we got to go into the Great Smiles, but I was disappointed we never get to go into Brandy Hall. So now I mean, this is clearly like the Great Smiles or Brandy Hall in its scope, I think. So there could possibly be, other, maybe this was just where the great family lived and there are other hobbit holes. It's time to end, but maybe we could just go step back outside briefly. Oh, hang on. No, this is back. Did I miss the turn? I missed the turn.
Oh yeah, it's back up here
I did miss the turn.
near the cage.
Aha, right on. Okay.
Makes you wonder what's on top. Like, are there any like lookout towers or windows up there?
Right. I just wanted to look at the neighborhood and see if there's any evidence of any others. I mean, of course, I like the fact they gave a kind of excuse, right? Like it's not automatic that the cave dwellings of the hobbits of 500 years ago would necessarily still be there. But of course, they've been recently excavated by, so I'm kind of looking around here and trying to imagine other whole. I mean, this is not like, the hill in Buckland. I mean, this is a big old.
Yeah, you couldn't even build anything on the side here.
Side of a mountain, yeah. See, now here's another entrance right here, though. Yep. Bingo.
Same one, or
Nope.
still says Tootin Melon?
But it's not the Warrens anymore. It's a different one.
No, you're right.
Yep.
Oh, we came in through a hole in the wall here. That looks like that wasn't meant to be an entrance.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. Okay. Well, I was going to say let's explore next week, but there's nothing to explore. This is just it. This is just.
Yeah, it's all caved in.
It's just
There's
this
an old
room.
brass button
There's a brass button.
over here.
What?
Oh, and a bark page. Keep your sons and daughters dear, mind the moors and marshes drear, for when the night grows black and cold, comes crawling up the mad and old. Oh. Okay. That went somewhere I didn't.
So that's what they're calling them these days.
Or
Yes.
somebody.
Yes. Where's the brass button? I don't see a brass button.
There should be a nameplate over here.
A nameplate?
Yeah. Do you have names on?
No.
No.
Oh, old brass button. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nope. It might be part of the quest. You have to go find some things.
Huh.
There's a
But,
hobbit-sized chair here.
Well, we can kind of guess who this brass button came off of. Still some scummy stuff on these dishes, too.
There's
So,
Dime
yeah.
sitting demurely in the chair over in the corner
Dime's magical because that chair was smaller before she sat in it.
there.
It was the size of this chair over here.
wibbly wobbly.
So that
magicy
chair is
wagicy.
like it's like the chair of power that adapts itself. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it does. How very eerie. Okay. Well, cool. Okay. Well, certainly what this shows then is if we just step outside, and then we really do have to go, but if we just step outside for a second. Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
it shows that, looking at the map for a second, it does show that there are multiple places along this whole mountainside. So it's like, it's like the big hill, in Buckland.
It's like an apartment block.
You're right. Exactly. It's like an apartment block with lots of
Well-
different entrances. And no doubt separate, private homes. I'm not saying they all necessarily lived in one sort of communal building.
But- Yeah, that's where I got. It feels like an apartment block where everybody's got their own houses, but they're all sort of stacked together in the same community.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly. And there's where the ring was found.
Mm-hmm.
Right out here.
Or unless the river changed its course, which we did theorize.
Well, right. Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm saying that like, the diggings are right there. So where Isildur, where the battle was fought, was right here. So that means that the ring would have been found right here in this vicinity, right outside. So that this might have been Smeagol's house.
Might have, yeah. I mean, it looks, if the brass button there makes me think he brought it back to his old house and just sat there looking at it and plotting revenge.
Yeah. This seems to me very possible. Okay. All right. Well, we should end here. We're late, been late all night, but I want to keep everybody all evening long. So thank you everybody for joining me tonight. This has been, and just for the record, I did not know that this was here for a fact, nor had any idea where it was. I'm kind of proud at how our, logical and archaeological reasoning led us straight here as if I knew right where it was, but I didn't.
Yay, deduction.
Yeah, so that was fun. See, we're getting good at this archeo gaming thing, right? Next time we'll go over there and see who's lighting fires over there. But I fear the worst. But so we'll do that next time. So I should point out, indeed, I should have pointed this out sooner, that so I'm not going to be able to meet next. So we're coming up on the holidays. So I'm actually going to take a 2-week hiatus here, doing family stuff and everything. So we will, so this will actually be it until January, first week of January. So we'll come back on the January 5th or whatever it is. So anyway.
Okay.
So
happy holidays, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Exactly. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. And we will be back in January. Back right around Tolkien's birthday again for our next session.
All right.
Anniversary party.
That's it.
Oh yeah, totally.
Anniversary party. It'll be the 4th anniversary.
I think so. Yeah.
4th anniversary, because it was 2017, wasn't it?
Yeah,
January 3rd, 2017.
5 million years ago.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. See you next year. I am doing the rest of my broadcast this week as usual, but we'll do Exploring the Lord of the Rings again in 3 weeks from tonight. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night now.
Good night.
Thanks for joining me on this epic exploration of The Lord of the Rings and of Standing Stone's video adaptation of Tolkien's story. If you are having even half the fun I'm having on this journey, I hope you will consider supporting the project by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.